I got fed up with the oil consumption on my XR150L. I wasn't going to deal with it anymore, so I decided to dig in and make it right no matter what it took. In case you didn't see the last video on the XR150L, I had been keeping a careful eye on oil consumption because it was consuming a ridiculous amount. People tried telling me that oil consumption is normal, or that it was my fault because I was riding the bike too hard, or they assumed that I fried the engine during break-in. Fortunately, I wasn't born yesterday, and I've actually been riding, racing, maintaining, and rebuilding these things quite actively for the past 16 years. So I have had the opportunity to put together some understanding of what's normal and what's not. The oil consumption on this bike was not what I would consider normal or tolerable, even if it is getting run stupid hard, which this bike definitely is. So I wanted to fix it instead of just accepting an inappropriate amount of oil consumption. It didn't take long to find one definite source of oil consumption. Actually, it was the first thing I checked. The crankcase breather. I popped it off and it was drenched with oil. The stock crankcase breather looked like a really poorly thought out design, or just a straight up not even thought out at all design. It makes an immediate 90-degree turn right out of the crankcase and travels a flat line directly over to the airbox, leaving absolutely no chance for coughed out oil to return. Looking at that, perhaps mine actually was defective, perhaps cut too short, causing that immediate bend in the hose. So I replaced it with something slightly thought out, but still stupid simple. Just a longer length of hose going basically straight upward, then taking a 90-degree turn and winding back down, then connecting where the original breather joins up into the airbox. The thought behind this was to just give oil that escapes into the breather a chance to return to the crankcase after it gets thrown out. I did this right after my last video where I had about 2,100 miles on the bike. The bike has over 3,000 miles now, and ever since I made this very simple alteration to the crankcase breather, there has been no measurable change in the oil level. In the several hundred miles that the bike has been going with this tiny modification, I would have had to add oil 2 or 3 times with the original breather. But now the oil level doesn't even move, or at least changes so slowly that I likely will not have to even add oil throughout the 2,500 mile oil change interval recommended by the manual. As long as I keep it rubber side down, that is. With the oil consumption issue seemingly completely resolved now with just that tiny little modification, I am way happier with the bike because that was a huge, glaring issue that I was having.